Oh boy, where do I even begin with this one? You know how they say some stories are too ridiculous to be made up? Well, strap in, because this is the official record of how we discovered that we've been living next door to literal death-defying space orcs this whole time. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was, as usual, filled with the gentle hum of anti-grav chairs and the soft whispers of various species discussing their latest trade agreements. Counselor Zenith, with their characteristic shimmer of iridescent scales, called the emergency session to order with 3 sharp taps of their ceremonial staff. Esteemed colleague, Zenith announced, their voice modulator carefully calibrated to sound both authoritative and concerned. We have called this emergency session to discuss the findings from exploration vessel Star Seeker regarding Planet 37X in the Sol system. Fun fact, we almost missed Earth entirely because someone categorized it as too hostile for life during the initial survey. Oops. Captain Blackthorn stepped forward, their tentacles slightly rippling with barely contained excitement. As the leading xenobiologist in the Outer Rim, they had seen their fair share of strange worlds. But this was different. Honorable Counsel Blackthorn began, their voice steady despite their obvious agitation. What I'm about to present defies everything we know about planetary classification and the limits of biological life. The holographic display came to life, showing a beautiful blue-green marble spinning slowly in the air. Several council members leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused intently on the image. Planet 37X, which the natives call Earth, breaks approximately. While all of our established rules for life-supporting planets, Blackthorn paused for dramatic effect. And yet, it's not only supporting life, it's teeming with it. I swear I heard someone's exoskeleton crack from shock at this point. Commander Axis Prime, the military advisor, raised a crystalline appendage. Define breaks all rules, Captain. Surely you're exaggerating. Blackthorn's laugh was short and slightly hysterical. Am I? Let's start with the basics, shall we? The gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. Someone in the back fainted. But wait, Blackthorn continued, clearly enjoying the chaos, there's more. The atmosphere is primarily nitrogen and oxygen. Yes, you heard that right, oxygen. You know, the highly reactive gas that causes spontaneous combustion on most worlds? They're breathing it, for fun. I had to verify this data 3 times. Each time, I hoped we'd made a mistake. We hadn't. High Counselor Zenith's scales had lost their iridescence, turning a pale shade of worry. Captain Blackthorn, please tell me you're practicing that human concept called humor that we recently discovered. Oh, how I wish I was. But no, and speaking of temperature, let's talk about their climate zones. Some parts of this planet go from scorching hot to freezing cold in the same day. And the locals? They just put on different pieces of cloth and carry on like it's nothing. Science Officer Luna Starweaver stepped forward, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns that indicated severe scientific distress. Our initial scans also detected something disturbing. The locals appeared to intentionally expose themselves to harmful solar radiation for aesthetic purposes. They call it tanning. I still can't wrap my primary brain around it, let alone my auxiliary ones. But surely a council member from the aquatic delegation bubbled. Such conditions would prevent the development of intelligent life. Blackthorn and Starweaver exchanged glances. About that, Blackthorn activated another hologram. We've been observing their information networks. These humans, as they call themselves, don't just survive in these conditions. How do I put this delicately? They treat it like a game. Starweaver burst out, her crystalline form vibrating with incredulity. Look at this footage. The hologram showed humans jumping out of perfectly functional flying machines, diving into large bodies of water from ridiculous heights, and deliberately sliding down frozen mountains on primitive boards. Personal note, the first time we saw extreme sports, 3 of our best behavioral analysts requested immediate retirement. Counselor Zenith raised all 4 hands for silence. Captain Blackthorn, based on these observations, what classification would you give this planet? Blackthorn's tentacles went completely still, a sign of utmost seriousness among their species. Honorable Council, our classification system traditionally ends at Class 12. Earth would be, at minimum, a Class 13 Deathworld. Possibly 14, once we complete our full analysis. The chamber erupted in chaos. Anti-grav chairs wobbled dangerously as council members gestured with various appendages, voices raised in multiple frequencies of alarm. Impossible, preposterous, what do you mean possibly 14? I've seen less panic when we discovered that quantum space slug infestation in the central archives. Zenith slammed their staff down hard enough to crack the ceremonial floor tiles. Silence. The chamber fell quiet, save for the soft whimper of the statistical probability specialist still processing the impossibility of it all. Captain Blackthorn Zenith spoke slowly. What are your recommendations regarding this situation? Blackthorn's tentacles curled thoughtfully. Well, that's the most interesting part. While we've been having this discussion, our sensors have detected that they've recently achieved rudimentary spaceflight capabilities. The silence that followed was so profound that you could hear a plasma conduit leak. What Zenith's scales had now turned the color of absolute panic. Oh yes, Blackthorn continued, almost cheerfully. They've built orbital stations, landed on their moon, and are currently planning missions to their neighboring planet, which, by the way, is even more hostile than Earth. Luna Starweaver's crystals chimed in with additional data. And they're doing all this with technology that, by our standards, shouldn't even work. They're using liquid fuel rockets. Liquid fuel. It's like watching someone try to reach orbit using a controlled explosion. Which is, terrifyingly enough, exactly what they're doing. The presentation screen switched to show various human space missions, each more nerve-wracking than the last. The Council watched in horror as humans strapped themselves to giant tubes of explosives and hurled themselves into space with what appeared to be reckless abandon and boundless enthusiasm. And here's the real kicker, Blackthorn said, saving their most shocking revelation for last. We've detected their primitive communication signals. They're broadcasting their presence into space. Deliberately, they're not hiding their advertising. HFY Counselor Zenith's scales had now achieved a new color previously unknown to xenobiologists. Are you telling me? They said very carefully that these beings who treat a Class 13 or 14 Deathworld as their playground, who breathe oxidizers, who deliberately expose themselves to radiation, who use explosions for space travel, are actively trying to make contact with the galaxy at large. Precisely, Blackthorn's tentacles wiggled with what might have been either excitement or terror. And based on their entertainment broadcast, they're expecting either friends or foes, and they seem equally excited about either possibility. Note to future archivists, this marks the first recorded instance of an entire Galactic Council collectively questioning their career choices. The emergency session ended with the formation of a special task force to determine how to handle first contact with a species that, by all scientific logic, shouldn't exist. As the council members filed out, many were heard muttering prayers to various deities. Counselor Zenith held back Captain Blackthorn and Science Officer Starweaver. This stays absolutely classified for now. The last thing we need is a panic when people realize we've been sharing the galaxy with Deathworlders who think their lethal planet is fun, Starweaver suggested helpfully. Precisely, Zenith shuddered. Schedule a follow-up briefing. And bring stronger nerve suppressants. We're going to need them. End of initial discovery report. Personal note: stock up on nerve suppressants. Something tells me we're going to need a lot more before this is over. Classified Field Report Operation Earthwatch compiled by Science Officer Luna Starweaver. Personal annotations by Senior Archivist Nova Bright marked with. You think discovering Earth was wild? Wait until you read about our first actual attempts to study these lunatics up close. I've had to start taking double doses of reality stabilizers just to process these reports. Day 1 of covert observation. Our stealth observation pod has successfully achieved orbit around Earth. Captain Blackthorn insists on maintaining a generous distance from their primitive satellites, though I must note that these satellites seem to be held together by what they call duct tape and hope. Addendum: we later discovered that duct tape is considered a universal repair tool on Earth. The implications are disturbing. Initial observation positions established. Commander Axis Prime noted in the ship's log. Though I must question why we need 4 separate escape vectors plotted at all times. Trust me, Blackthorn's tentacles twitched nervously. After what I saw in the preliminary reports, we might need more. Our first major breakthrough came when we managed to tap into something they call social media. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, but more concerning was the content. Personal note: the first analyst who had to explain what a Tide Pod challenge was had to take immediate stress leave. Captain Luna Starweaver's crystals were flickering in distress. You need to see this footage immediately. The observation team gathered around the main screen, watching in horror as humans participated in something called parkour. Are they? Axis Prime's crystalline structure paled considerably, deliberately jumping between high structures with no safety equipment. Oh, that's nothing. Blackthorn waved a tentacle dismissively. Wait until you see what they call free solo climbing. The next footage caused 3 junior researchers to request immediate transfer to the Radioactive Waste Management Division, claiming it would be less stressful. They weren't wrong. Day 7 of observation. Dr. Nebula Storm, our chief meteorologist, has submitted her resignation 5 times today alone. I keep having to remind her that we need her expertise, especially after discovering humans regularly chase something called tornadoes for fun. But that's not even the worst part. She practically screamed during the evening briefing. They have these people they call surfers who deliberately ride liquid water formations that could crush them instantly, and they smile while doing it. The biological analysis team wasn't faring much better. Chief Medical Officer Atlas Thunder's report was particularly concerning. Their skeletal structure is reinforced by a calcium-based framework that continuously repairs itself. They routinely break these bones and just wait for them to heal. Some of them even display their healing injuries as badges of honor. Note the concept of a cool scar sparked a week-long debate in the xenobiology department about whether humans are actually capable of feeling pain as we understand it. Day 15 of observation. Today's emergency meeting was called after we discovered something called hot sauce competitions. Captain Blackthorn had to physically restrain our head of xenogastronomy from erasing their own memory banks. They deliberately consumed chemical irritants. The xenogastronomy chief was practically vibrating. For entertainment, they have something called the one-chip challenge that they couldn't continue. We had to send them to medical for anxiety suppression. Luna Starweaver's daily report wasn't any more comforting. Their young gather in designated education centers where they're taught to manipulate dangerous chemicals, harness electricity, and understand the fundamental forces of the universe. They call this science class and consider it basic education. Reminder: update emergency protocols to include spontaneous human scientific discoveries as a potential threat category. Day 23 of observation. The military analysis team has requested an urgent council meeting. Commander Axis Prime's report was unsettling. By council they began, their crystalline form unusually rigid. Humans don't just survive their death world, they've weaponized almost every aspect of it. The holographic display showed human military training exercises. The council watched in stunned silence as humans jumped from high-altitude aircraft, survived in Arctic conditions, conducted underwater operations, traversed scorching deserts, operated in zero-visibility conditions. And here's the truly terrifying part: Axis continued. This is just their basic training. Personal note: the footage of their Special Forces training has been classified at the highest level to prevent mass panic. Day 30 of observation. Today we discovered human entertainment media. The psychological analysis team is still trying to process what they call action movies. Let me get this straight: High Counselor Zenith pinched their sensory bridges. They create simulated scenarios of surviving impossible odds for relaxation. Yes, Luna Starweaver's crystals had dulled to a stressed gray, and the more implausible the survival scenario, the more they seemed to enjoy it. That's not even the worst part, Blackthorn added. They have these things called disaster movies where they imagine their death world becoming even more lethal, and then they figure out how to survive that. Classification update: after reviewing their disaster preparedness plans, Earth has been officially upgraded to Class 14 Death World status. The classification committee is considering creating a new category just for Earth. Day 45 of observation. Final analysis meeting. The chamber was unusually quiet as Captain Blackthorn presented the conclusion of our initial investigation. Distinguished council members, they began, all tentacles perfectly still. After extensive observation, we must revise our initial assessment. Earth isn't merely a Class 13 or 14 death world. It's something else entirely. The holographic display showed a montage of human activities: children playing in snowstorms, athletes performing impossible feats, scientists handling dangerous materials, soldiers training in extreme conditions, and ordinary humans going about their lives in environments that should be instantly lethal. These humans, Blackthorn continued, don't just survive their death world, they love it. They actively seek out its most dangerous aspects and turn them into recreational activities. They've evolved not just to endure these conditions, but to thrive in them. Luna Starweaver's final report added another disturbing dimension: they're advancing technologically at an exponential rate. They went from primitive flight to space exploration in less than a century. Their technological progress doesn't follow any known development patterns. Personal note: their definition of impossible appears to be something we haven't done yet. Hold my beer. The council chamber erupted into chaos as the implications sank in. High Counselor Zenith had to use their ceremonial staff 3 times to restore order. What are your final recommendations? They asked, scales shifting through worried colors. Captain Blackthorn's response was simple but chilling: we need to seriously consider the possibility that we're not dealing with a species that evolved on a death world. We might be dealing with a species that turned a death world into a paradise. because anything less extreme would bore them. End of investigation report. Personal note: I need a vacation. Preferably somewhere with stable gravity and no extreme sports. Emergency Council Session Transcript Code Level Omega recorded by Senior Archivist Nova. Bright warning: contents may cause existential crisis. Personal annotations marked with. Well, folks, this is it. The day everything changed. Also the day I seriously considered a career change to something less stressful, like antimatter juggling. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so full. Representatives from every major species had assembled, drawn by rumors of the Earth investigation's final findings. The tension was thick enough to trigger density sensors. Councilor Zenith, their scales now permanently stuck in anxiety purple, called the session to order. Before we begin, I must remind everyone that panic-induced molting is strictly prohibited in the chamber. The cleaning staff is still traumatized from last time. Captain Blackthorn took the central platform, surrounded by holographic displays. Their tentacles were completely still, a sign that even they had moved beyond nervous to a state of zen-like acceptance of the absurd. Esteemed Council, they began. Remember how we thought discovering Earth was a Class 14 Deathworld was the worst of it? Well, we were wrong. So, very, very wrong. Fun fact, this is the first time in recorded history that the phrase "we were wrong" has been uttered in the council chamber without causing at least 3 diplomatic incidents. Luna Starweaver stepped forward, her crystalline form gleaming with what could only be described as scientific hysteria. During our extended observation, we discovered something impossible. Humans aren't just surviving on their death world. They're not even just thriving. They're bored with it. The holographic display activated, showing scenes that caused several council members to lose consciousness. Humans deliberately jumping off cliffs with nothing but fabric wings. People scaling frozen waterfalls for fun. Children playing in conditions that would qualify as military endurance tests on most worlds. Something called volcano boarding. But here's the real kicker, Blackthorn continued, almost cheerfully. We've detected their primitive space program has advanced significantly. Commander Axis Prime's crystalline form shimmered with military precision as they presented the next set of data. They've not only reached their moon, they're planning permanent settlements there. And Mars. And they're talking about something called terraforming, which apparently means making other planets as challenging as Earth. Note to future historians, yes, they want to make other planets more like their death world. No, this is not a translation error. Surely a council member wavered. They must be approaching their technological limits. Luna Starweaver's laugh had a slightly maniacal edge. Limits? Limits? They don't believe in limits. Look at this. The display showed human scientific achievements, each more impossible than the last. They were splitting atoms, manipulating genetics, creating artificial intelligence, and most terrifyingly starting to understand quantum mechanics. They went from discovering nuclear fission to making memes about it in less than a century. Starweaver's crystals were practically strobing with excitement. Do you have any idea how terrifying that is from a developmental standpoint? Personal note: the concept of memes required a separate 40-page appendix to explain. 3 xenosociologists retired after working on it. But the real bombshell was yet to come. Captain Blackthorn's tentacles suddenly went rigid. Honorable Council, we've detected something concerning. Multiple hidden observation posts around Earth. Not ours. The chamber went deadly quiet. Are you suggesting High Counselor Zenith's scales shifted to absolute panic white that other species have been watching Earth? Oh, it gets better. Blackthorn activated a final holographic display. We've decoded some of their entertainment broadcasts. Their so-called science fiction, it's remarkably accurate about alien life. Too accurate. Luna Starweaver stepped forward again. We believe humans have known about extraterrestrial life for quite some time. They've been watching us. Watching them. At this point, 3 council members had to be treated for reality dysfunction syndrome. But how Axis Prime demanded. Their technology shouldn't be capable of detecting our stealth systems. That's just it. Blackthorn's tentacles waved in excitement. They didn't need to detect us technologically. They just assumed we were there. They made entertainment about it. They prepared for it. They've been ready for first contact since before they had computers. The display showed clips from human movies and TV shows depicting alien contact scenarios. The accuracy was disturbing. And here's the most terrifying part. Starweaver chimed in. They're excited about it. All possible scenarios. Peaceful contact? They're ready. Hostile invasion? They've got plans, thousands of them. Trade opportunities? They've already drafted proposals. Side note, their Independence Day scenario response protocols are surprisingly well thought out. High Counselor Zenith had to use their ceremonial staff as a support. Are you telling me that this species, which treats a death world as a playground, which laughs in the face of physics, which is advancing at an impossible rate, has been preparing for galactic civilization this whole time? Yes, Blackthorn said simply. And based on our latest analysis, they're now advanced enough to detect this meeting. As if on cue, every screen in the chamber lit up with a simple message. Hello, Galactic Council. We were wondering when you'd finally introduce yourselves. Would you like to come down for coffee? We promise to keep the gravity at a comfortable level for you. The message was signed Humanity, your enthusiastic neighbors. Personal note, first recorded instance of an entire Galactic Council simultaneously needing a drink. The aftermath was chaos. Proposals flew from every direction. We should quarantine the whole system. We should fast-track them into the council. We should run away and pretend we never saw them. Finally, High Counselor Zenith raised all four hands for silence. It seems they said carefully that we have only one logical choice. They already know about us, they're already in space, and they're enthusiastic about meeting us. Captain Blackthorn's tentacles curled in amusement. They've already started building what they call an embassy. It has artificial gravity generators to accommodate us, and something called a coffee shop. Very well, Zenith sighed, their scales settling into a resigned blue. Prepare a first contact delegation, and someone figure out what coffee is. Warning, subsequent discovery of caffeine led to creation of new xenobiological hazard category. The final report contained one last observation from Captain Blackthorn. In conclusion, Earth is not simply a Class 14 death world. It is something unprecedented, a crucible that forged a species so adaptable, so resilient, and so enthusiastically curious that they turned conditions we consider lethal into their comfort zone. They don't just survive the impossible. They actively seek it out, document it, learn from it, and then ask what's next. May whatever deities you believe in help us all. Humanity is ready to join the galactic community. The real question is the galactic community ready for humanity? Final archival note, they brought coffee to the first official meeting. 3 species discovered they could metabolize it. 2 galactic laws were passed within 24 hours about its distribution. Humanity just smiled. End of final report. Personal note, I'm taking that vacation now. Somewhere quiet. With no extreme sports, no coffee, and definitely no humans. Oh, who am I kidding? They're probably already there, trying to surf on the plasma waves or something.